Hey, good evening, everyone, and thank you for your patience. We wanted to give the folks that have been using the room here for no excuse absentee voting a chance to pack up. And I know they've been very busy since they started here. So thanks for your patience while we gave them a couple minutes to just get packed up for the night. All right, we will begin our work session agenda for Monday, October 28th. So we'll move forward with the roll call.
Mayor Garitano,
Here.
Councilmember Bros,
Here.
Councilmember Edens,
Here.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Here.
Councilmember Marshall,
Present.
Councilmember Jaxi, Councilmember Hopper,
Here.
Councilmember Galani,
Here.
Councilmember Preston,
Here.
Councilmember Mabry,
Here.
Councilmember Nyan,
Here.
Councilmember Farmer,
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Here.
Councilmember Rambo,
Here.
Councilmember Crayons,
Here.
Councilmember Albers.
Here.
Okay, thanks again. And I do not have any specific comments or announcements at this time. So we'll proceed forward with the for action portion of tonight's agenda, which is the review of the proposed fiscal year 2025 municipal budget. So I will now ask our city administrator, Thomas Lee, to introduce the topic here so we can begin this discussion.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So on Friday, we went ahead and posted the budget as proposed during the lead up of this month. And we'll go through a process now at this work session to provide input, any additional feedback from the council, to work that in before our budget public hearing and our first reading of the bill adopting the 2025 budget in November. That meeting will take place next November on Monday, November 18th, 2024. And tonight, first and foremost, wanted to start by thanking the team. The team to put a lot of work and time into organizing the papers that you see in front of you today and the budget in general. I would also like to thank our interim finance officer who is with us tonight, Rana Alanese, who's been working with us since Don Kaiser had retired back in June. So do appreciate that as well. One component here, we went to the Board of Public Safety on October 10th to review the police budget items. And one item that we wanted to have our captain speak to tonight, we will, is the reduction from 36 guaranteed police officers for an everyday role, but that doesn't include necessarily the sergeant's, lieutenant, or the captain himself. In the admin role, but reducing that to 34. And the Board of Public Safety had endorsed that recommendation. And that is when you look at the numbers for tonight, that is what that is based off of. And we'll have him speak to that just in a moment. But the other component was going to both the Planning and Parks Council Committee and also the Administration Public Works Committee and the Economic Development Council Committee to discuss everyone's respective portions of the budget. And the major discussion item we can find tonight is that overall our departmental expenditures are looking, they've gone up just a little bit on some of the, our major expenditures like our concert series outside, some of our service contracts, but overall we do have revenues equaling and being a little bit more than expected expenditures for the departmental level. And the same could be said for our road and bridge fund, where it's a little bit more maintenance focused on resurfacing roads and also doing some just general asphalt work. But the other component and the one that we wanted to point out really is the capital projects, the 5-year, but also just the 2025 capital improvement program. In this case, we are anticipating about $10 million worth of expenditures, a little bit north of 10 million next year. And that stacks up against approximately about 3,200,000. I don't have the exact number in front of me right here, but that disparity, we do have grant funding coming in, but just wanted to point out that, we do have a couple more years in front of us where we have pretty high expenditures coming in on the capital improvement sales tax fund. We have some major projects coming in. We do have approximately over the next couple years, 500,000 each year, except for 2027. It went down to 250 based off our previous year, 5-year capital improvement program. About 500 put towards watershed erosion projects. We do know that we're about to be doing the stormwater management master plan, so additional projects could be identified. There could be a lot of items that come in and projects that come in that we're able to get matched funding, but wanted to point this out tonight and get input. Did provide next year's, but also the next 5 years. And you'll see that over the next 5 years, we have about 10 million being spent around next year, this year in 2025, so coming year, and then 8 million, and then 11 million, and then it balances out, and we're actually having revenue over expenditure. So wanted to call that out tonight, see if we wanted to make some suggestions. The council had any suggestions on kind of leveling that over the full 5-year duration, or potentially examining some of the projects. And what you would see if on the agenda tonight is a priority matrix that has been included. It is the hard copy, not necessarily the interactive copy that would come with within like an Excel doc, but we're potentially we could discuss tonight. The department's goal is to discuss tonight the utilization of this priority matrix to both look at the projects we currently have and then have this and use it and potentially adopt it as a council for the next couple years when we're reviewing the 5-year to kind of fill in that 5th year. The other component would mean that we would also look at the current projects we have and then how much those projects, there's one item that says ongoing maintenance and the operating costs. We would start examining a little bit more of when we add a project to the list, how much is it actually going to cost in the long run? So in that case, the department's available for any questions today, but really the major items wanted to call out was that the numbers that you're looking at tonight for operating and the departmental expenditures are based off a head count for the police officers at 34 versus 36. We would have to go back in and do some revising if we want to go to 36 and keep it at that level. And then the other component is discussing the capital improvement sales tax fund. But another awesome item here is that we are budgeting in the next year for the phase 2 of the internet access project. So in that case, we should be able to close that out utilizing the remaining ARPA funds at $468,000, while also transferring out the charter settlement funds discussed during December of last year at about $1,010,724, along with the interest earned off the ARPA funds over the duration of holding it at approximately $476,000. So in this case, we do look like we have a healthy chance at knocking out phase 2. So that's good news. But when it comes to the other project in the capital improvement sales tax fund, wanted to have a broader discussion and discuss the number of police. So thank you.
And see if we have any questions regarding any items there or any items that you need further clarification on.
Yeah. So in this case, back to really tonight and looking at it, the departmental expenditures, we are operating based off the numbers projected at a $26,000 surplus. A portion of that is based off revenue that is coming in at approximately 26,000 over. We are budgeting about 26,000 coming in for our zoning authorizations that we've passed. That's actually a pretty conservative number, so that number could be a little bit higher. That being said, we do have a couple nominal increases on departmental expenditures, but overall, the main item wanting to discuss, we'll obviously answer any questions on those departmental expenditures after the council's review, but then also discuss the capital improvement sales tax fund. So in this case, I guess the first thing we could knock out is the discussion of the police services agreement at 34 versus 36, because that would, if we want to maintain the 36, that would very drastically change our numbers projected tonight. So in that case, if you wouldn't mind, Mayor, if we could invite Captain Mundell up to explain that change and then get input from the council. And then just as a reminder, this item did go to Board of Public Safety. They did sign off on this and endorsed the moving down from 36 to 34. And the main reason why, and I'll let Captain elaborate here, is that they changed to a shift schedule back in 2023 that has allowed for some efficiencies and has created a few redundancies that hopefully we can capitalize on. Thank you, Captain.
Thank you, Tom. You pretty much did a good job of covering it. It's pretty simple. Back in 2022, the department started a pilot program in 2 of our precincts, evaluating 12-hour shifts. There's a national trend, local trend also of 12-hour shifts, as opposed to what we were on before was 10-hour shifts, which was kind of inefficient. We ran 3 shifts at 10 hours each, and those obviously had overlaps. So really for the department to more efficiently use manpower, as everyone has seen, policing manpower nationwide has taken a hit for whatever reason. So it was one opportunity for the department to evaluate that. We did get some benefits from that. Once that decision was made that we would go in our division of patrol, which is all of our precincts, would go to the 12-hour shifts. We were given the direction to do that. I maintained our current staffing at 36 to make sure it was a fit for Wildwood, that we could still do what we were supposed to do here. It gave us an opportunity to put an officer in as a precinct detective. His responsibility is pretty much in-house follow-up, special investigations. He is pretty busy doing that, so that was a good position for us to try out. Beyond that, our shifts went from 10 officers each shift, so that was the 30 officers, to 14 officers on a day shift and 14 officers on a night shift. So that's our two bodies that came up that we were fat, honestly. And after we've gone through some time evaluating, making sure we're covering what we need to cover, I wanted to present to the city that we can really do away with those two spots. And no officers losing their jobs, anything like that. The department certainly has opportunities throughout the entire department to move officers elsewhere. So I think it's a win-win for both. We maintain what we need to do the job for you while saving you some expenses. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Okay, Councilmember Dodwell.
Captain, if they're doing 12-hour shifts, how many days a week do they do that?
So basically, we work on a 28-day schedule, even though we're not rotating shifts. So our pay periods are 14 days.
Mhm.
Out of those 14 days, they're going to work 7. So there's 6 12-hour days and 1 8-hour day. The 8-hour day tends to be used for training. Most of our training classes are 8 hours. Or if they take a day off for a holiday or something like that, it's 8 hours.
Staff's okay with all of that?
Absolutely. They were the ones that kind of pushed us forward through our police union or police association.
Okay.
Councilmember Albers.
Not a budget question. Do they rotate shifts? Just out of my
They
curiosity.
do not. That's
Oh.
been a big topic based on seniority. At the beginning of each year, they have the opportunity to pick shifts, which will be happening for us probably in November. So there's an opportunity if a guy wants to move back or forth from days. We do get, our seniority is pretty much spread out. So you'd think that all the new guys would get stuck on nights. That's not the case.
Okay,
There's opportunities and a little room for advancement by going to the night shift.
thanks.
Councilmember Mabry. Can you push the microphone button? Thank you.
Did you hear? Or
I did
shall I
not,
repeat?
I'm sorry.
Is there a shift differential for second and third shift?
There is. It's days and nights. It's roughly, or the shifts go from about 6
12.
a.m. to 6
Okay.
p.m. So the officers that start after the 6 p.m., there is a pay bump, which is an opportunity. If you want to make some more money, you work on nights.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, do we have any other questions from the council pertaining to this recommendation? Member Mabry. Could you go ahead and repeat that, please? Thank you.
I saw what looked like correct scale order of magnitude requests in the 91,000 for incidentals. I couldn't pick any fat out of those. I just wondered if there was any other thoughts or if everyone remaining silent agrees.
The majority of that, Tom may want to talk further to that, but the majority of that amount was to accommodate out of the your Prop P funding, replacing your pass card readers throughout the entire city hall. So improve your security. Obviously, there's some failures. The current system is pretty much outdated. Finding replacement parts is next to impossible. So as it continues to fail, where your holes starting to form in your building security. So Tom and I talked about that, and I made a suggestion that you have the funding available in your Prop B fund for that I think is an appropriate use of that money for you.
Thank you.
Hey, Councilmember Edens.
Thank you very much for the explanation. Since this is a for action item, I'm under the assumption that a motion is expected and required. And if that is the case, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion supporting both the capital items request and a renewal of the contract with the 34 officers, because I feel like the explanation was great. I love that it came from internal testing and was recommended by you and not a random person like myself just deciding that this change made sense. So thank you for your due diligence. So a motion is on the floor.
City Administrator, are you looking for a motion specific to this
Yes,
item? Okay.
tonight, just so we can finalize the numbers going into the public hearing in November, we're looking to just get direction. Either way, I know Ms. Edens just commented that and made a motion about 34, whether or not it's 34 or 36, just getting clear direction from the council on which number would suffice for 2024 while also reviewing those capital items.
Okay, Councilmember McCutcheon, is that for a second on the motion? Okay, so it's a question, not a motion at this time. All right, go ahead, Councilmember McCutcheon. I'll let you go ahead and answer the question, but I do want to just check to see if anyone is willing to make the second, Councilmember Galani. So at least we have the motion there. So go ahead, Councilmember McCutcheon.
So Captain, do the officers have enough safety equipment, personal safety equipment that they need? And this change won't affect what they need to stay safe on the
Right.
job?
Not at all. In your contract, the cost per officer is a fixed amount. And that's based on our department's average salary. So you're not paying the exact salary for an officer working here. That gives us the opportunity to, if someone transfers, promotes, moves into another position, the contract stays the same without every 2 weeks or every payroll trying to figure out who's here and what their salary is. So, for us, it's more efficient just a flat amount on what that is. Included in that officer's salary costs are the benefits and all the equipment that we have to make our uniform, our vehicle costs, all that is all rolled into the cost of one officer. So it's the same for Wildwood per officer as it would be for any municipality that contract.
Do our officers have body cameras?
We do. We've had those for several years now, yes. And car cameras too.
Councilmember Mabry. Did you just push your microphone button? Thank you.
Can I just leave it on and not talk? Yes, I'm reminded that during the campaign for Proposition A and the last election for Monarch Fire District, one of the important considerations for the increased tax levy for real estate tax was the addressing the PFAS in first responders safety equipment. I know that safety equipment that you just mentioned, the captain, is included in their salary. Can you say whether or not our cops have any PFAS in their safety equipment or their uniforms?
I know what that is.
It's a known cancer-causing, moisture-wicking chemical. That's a microplastic that degrades under sweat and heat.
It's the fire retardant stuff.
I would say it's probably unlikely for the normal patrol guy to have that type of equipment because we're just not exposed to those same dangers as firemen is.
Very well. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? We do have that motion on the floor. I'll just add again, we appreciate the work that you do in leading the police precinct here, as well as the work of all the officers and the staff that you have there. So appreciate that. And I think for the any of the new council members that have come on board recently. I think you've always spoken to the flexibility that you have when relying with the county main office if you need to flex additional resources. So
Absolutely.
yeah, if you want to just maybe elaborate for a second on that, I think that's good to know what's
Right,
available there.
So the department is very large. We have roughly 1,100 employees. That includes about 250 civilian employees in our record section, crime lab, fingerprints, a lot of our support services behind the scene. And that cost is also kind of rolled into the cost of the officer that those support services are behind us. We have a division of criminal investigation, which is about 150 detectives specialize in various things, robbery, homicide, arson, crime scene detectives, firearms experts. Those are all there in place behind us, along with the division of special operations, which is our, they get all the neat toys. So they got the helicopters, dogs, that's the SWAT team, our special response unit. In the event that something major were to happen, what comes to mind is a homicide from a year or so ago. We immediately had about 12 detectives assigned to that, where we don't have that in-house here, because obviously that kind of thing doesn't happen a whole lot here in Wildwood. So they're on the scene to support us and take that investigation to a conclusion, along with missing person. A year or so ago, we were it's of our SWAT team. That's about 20 officers that are available to put people in motion immediately. Looking for someone missing, helicopters, dogs, all that kind of stuff is at our disposal. But it's obviously very cost prohibitive, for a municipality to have its own helicopter, or to have even a dog is expensive with purchasing the dog, supporting the dog, training, things like that. So we have about a 12 dog canine unit that specializes in different areas of expertise, so to speak, that are available to us anytime.
Thank you. All right, seeing no other hands up, but then we have that motion on the floor. We'll do that with a voice vote. So does anyone need it repeated at this point, or would you like it repeated? Could you please?
I have that it's to approve the proposed budget for the police department with 34 officers.
So is that it? Okay, seeing that, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone oppose or abstain? Okay, that motion passes. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to hand it over back to our city administrator to continue walking us through here with the budget.
Thank you, Mayor. So a couple other items. One quick note is that in the Deer Management Fund that you would see in the budget is, I believe it's the last page of the budget document that was translated. You'll see a 267,000 charge that's put on there for 2025. That would be for the work that is going to be discussed at the regular session tonight for the deer management, the second phase of the deer management project. You would note that the previous year, the first year was approximately, it wasn't budgeted under this fund. It was actually put in the capital, the public works departmental expenditures in 2024. And in that case, at year end in 2023, when we had the expenditure against it, it actually caused their budget to go over quite a bit. So that actually is what led, if everyone remembers here, to the creation of a deer management fund to isolate the costs associated with executing the program, and also to take that out of the general fund to make sure that we're, not necessarily throwing just the public works side on the departmental expenditures overboard there. So just a quick note on deer management, and that was recorded at year end in 2023. Another quick note is the Town Center Sewer Fund. We did redeem those bonds earlier this year in 2024. Currently, we are working with the city attorney to really go back and collect any delinquencies that we have outstanding. There's approximately $190,000 that is outstanding from the creation of the Town Center Sewer Fund, the NID, and then when we redeem the bonds. So in that case, we will not be doing any additional special assessments, but we do anticipate, hopefully, that we get those payments next year, and we be able to close that fund out. And then in this case, it is not money that a clarification after speaking with bond counsel. It is not monies that would then be transferred to the general fund. Those monies would actually be transferred, well, not transferred, they would be, checks would be cut to the individual residents that have paid in to the system, the real property owners of each area. So in that case, each property that had paid into the NID over the last amount of years would get their proportion back of what's left. So in that case, we will try to get those delinquencies, but any legal expenses that come up due to trying to get the delinquent individuals to pay will be reimbursed based off monies that is paid in. So one other quick note there. And then just a couple general updates here that in 2025, we will be looking to upgrade our e-newsletter. Hopefully we can transfer over to a little bit of a better system. We're looking to figure out a way to carry over those subscribers though, but something that's a little bit more creative. Well, not creative, but can provide video incorporation, things along those lines in our e-newsletter, while also doing a redesign of our website. We're looking to close out and finish up the Village Green here, and we have a lot of projects that are about to come out the door for Public Works. We also are faced with our accounting system that we have is ran by Tyler Tech. That's under our admin expenditures, but one of the items that are going up next year is that because currently we're using a little bit of an outdated system. So soon we'll probably be bringing something forward to council to make that upgrade over to the cloud and make sure that we're running, because at this time it'll stop getting updates in 2025 from Microsoft. And in that case, that does pose some security vulnerabilities. And overall, we need to get it off the current network, which is currently on our server, just sitting on our server connected to the web, and get that over to the cloud. The other component is just mentioning a couple different revenues that I wanted to point out that are like the cigarette tax that had used to be a pretty decent earner for the city, along with the fact that we did have a gas tax. We lowered our gas tax percentage in 2023. When Spire raised their rate. So that's another component of seeing a little bit of a decline in revenue. Also, we did have just a couple other, like the franchise fees they're kind of closing out. We're not seeing as much. And then the the cable tax as well. We're just not seeing those revenues at the same level. So in this case, at this point, we're looking healthy when it comes to our departmental expenditures. That being said, our revenues are starting. We have our capital, our pool sales tax that is looking healthy, our public safety sales tax that has been very helpful, and then our utility taxes. Those are the major drivers when it comes to our operating account and our general fund. The other components, the motor fuel gas tax, the road and bridge tax, those are really paying for all the capital projects that we have, and then also the road and bridge fund that's doing more of the maintenance. But overall, those numbers are growing. As each year we see more gas being consumed, we also see the price of gas increasing slightly, but also the same with sales tax as well, as because we've seen increases in inflation, things along those lines. So we've seen that grow a little bit, but we actually haven't changed any of the rates. And we are currently, the way the pool tax is dispersed, and a lot of these taxes are dispersed, is a countywide tax, and it's based off a per capita number based off the bicentennial census. So in this case, in 10 years, I did look up the department looked up the most recent estimate. We are looking at approximately 34,914 residents in Wildwood in 2023, the most recent numbers. So we're seeing a little bit of a decrease in numbers of residents. So that won't be recorded till 2030, but just something to keep in mind as well. Overall revenues for the major items that are funding the operation here in the city are looking healthy, but some of the smaller items like the cigarette tax and the cable tax have been decreasing. One item I wanted to mention, and it's included tonight, is our matrix. I'm more than happy to answer any questions on the revenue, but wanted to discuss the matrix and utilization of this matrix to pretty much grade and run all of our current capital projects that aren't necessarily tied directly to funding, grant funding that we already have, or a partnership, a supplemental agreement that we've already signed as a city and approved, the council has approved. In this case, we wanted to really look at that 5 years. So right now, and this is kind of stems from discussions had at the Administration Public Works Committee, that we wanted to kind of create a process to evaluate not only the projects that are in the 5-year capital improvement program, but also create potentially an unfunded project list, where if there is not enough funding in any given year, that we could create a kind of a rolling list each year that would become kind of the surplus area of projects where we could choose from to fill in that fifth year if we needed projects, but also taking a look and using different criterion and ranking that criterion to hopefully look at the projects we have outstanding in the 5 year, but also even the next year, and see which ones really mean need to be done, both from a staff's perspective, based off the inspections that we've done outside. Obviously we're not going to let a bridge collapse, but wanted to get input tonight. You'll see the numbering on the criteria. It's a weighted matrix and a weighted scoring system. So it really means the criteria that's proposed tonight could be based, it's 1 through 18 different criterion. And it's just laid out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 now. But the goal would be to get feedback on this criteria tonight, get feedback on the capital projects that are proposed, and then hopefully rank these criterion 1 through 18, or add or subtract different criteria. So in this case, we are currently, everything looks, overall, our budget is working exactly how we would like it to. The only place I'd say that further investigation is needed is our capital improvement sales tax fund and the capital projects that we have currently, and then over the next 3 years, because we are seeing pretty substantial increases over those years. So wanted to jump through the priority matrix, but obviously answer any questions about the operating and then the road and bridge fund, all of our different funds that we have. Thank you.
Okay, looks like we got a few hands up, and I'm gonna just start with the order. We'll go with Councilmember Ottenberg first, then followed by Dodwell and Marshall.
Well, the question I'm going to ask is, I think, the same question that Councilmember Dodwell and Councilmember Marshall are going to ask is, City Administrator Lee, you had mentioned some surplus budget items. What page is that on, or where do we find it? Or priority matrix? Sorry.
On the online agenda, the work session agenda. Sorry if that's not, it should be.
It is.
1 second. Yeah, priority matrix.
We should be on the work session. It is the third document that's listed there.
Share on screen.
Okay, so yes, Travis, if you can pull it up on the screen, that might
Could we do that,
also make it
please?
easier for folks to see here.
And just to give some background here too, while we're pulling that up, this was a similar process that was used. It's different criterion because it's a little bit of a different use. But the same type of process was used when we had last year the charter settlement funds, that we had that windfall from that charter settlement that came in 2023. It was that 1,010,000 number. And that it came in, and at that point, the council had different opinions on how to use it. So we actually ran multiple different projects that were discussed at the council level through this grading process, as you can see here. And then Travis, and I'll tell you when, but this is the general matrix, doesn't have projects filled in, but how we would look to do this is each project from the 5-year capital, or just even the next year's capital improvement program, would be listed in these 1, 2, 3, 4 down the actual the rows here. And then you actually see the criteria that's listed across the different columns. So in this case, the goal would be, it's right now, like I mentioned, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just listed in numerical order. But the goal would be maybe to look at this tonight and get feedback from the council on this, and also the weights that are, if you scroll down, there's different explanations of the weights. But the way it is here is to rank these, and then actually, if you fill this out, you would get an Excel sheet. And how we're kind of picturing this is each year, the city, myself, the department would email out to the whole council the list of projects that are coming in from both the staff side, but also that are listed on our 5-year capital. And then we would say, hey, we would bring up to the whole council that, are there any other projects that, maybe your residents have brought up? Are there any other projects that have become a top priority? A good example is this year, and what you see in 25 is we have 368 going towards the Old State Road high friction surface treatment project. That is a project that came up in the last year, and now we are budgeting for it. So that obviously, it took a lot of focus, and we also wanted to make sure we were able to address what the residents had brought up, and then obviously the county had brought in some pretty high cost benefit ratios along with matching funds. So that's the type of project that would maybe come up in the midst of a year and be able to bring that up and then run it through this matrix. If the council could agree upon a criteria, and this is more the criteria the department came up with, but this criteria, ranking it, it actually has a multiplication factors, meaning if master plan's the number one criteria, it would actually be ranked 18th. So that means if it gets a score of 0, 3, 5, or 9, it would actually be multiplied by that number. So in that case, the council is able to determine what criteria is most important to them, and then we could rank them accordingly. In that case, the projects would then come in, we'd have a final master list. That would be what would make up technically our unfunded and our 5-year. Then the whole council would be distributed this matrix, and then this would be completed via Excel. It would be simply, and right now, if you open up the Excel doc, if you just put the 0, 3, 5, or 9 in each one of these cells here, it actually would just automatically do the calculation on the side. So in this case, you would fill out you'd grade each project practically as each council member, and then submit that back to the department. We would then average out the scores and then take into account any standard deviations, specifically 2 standard deviations from the mean, which was used at the last, when we did the charter settlement funds, which seemed to be pretty successful. That showed a little bit of a favoritism towards certain projects.
So I just want to make sure, is that the same question that council members Dodwell and Marshall have, or do you have anything else?
I guess my question would be, as we discussed in the admin meeting the other night, was which projects are contingent upon funding and a date line? So we only have 2 years to get this project done. That to me would trump the worksheet based on how we spend our 3.2 million. So that was just curious how we probably wouldn't know that, but that's where I think it's important to look at the projects and what's funded and then what we have a time period on.
So in this case,
go ahead.
sorry, man, no.
I was going to say, I think you make a good point. I mean, you're basically alluding to that anything that we've already committed and is in flight should at this point really not be further discussed, because it is already something that is moving forward. So that is certainly something we'll want to keep in mind. Do you want to add to that? If
Yeah.
not, we're going to.
I can add to it right now. So right now, under roadway improvements, we are committed in a sense to definitely committed to the Route 109 BA South Roundabout construction project. We're also committed to we're committed to the Valley Road resurfacing and stormwater improvement project. We're committed to the Route 100 J turns construction and this is referring to the planned expenditures for 2025. So if you want to take a look, that is page. Second. No. It's the page 82. Oh, that's the 5-year. Sorry. End of it. Page 74 sounds about right. So page 74 would be the 2024 capital improvement. So that's kind of showing where we were at last year. So 75 would show that 2025 capital improvement sales tax fund project list. And in this case, we'll let everybody that wants to get to that page. They should be right.
Yeah.
Sorry, 1 second. Make sure that there's no other. Okay, so Travis, I can send this to you. Share that too. Yes, and tonight was really for the capital project matrix, was looking for feedback after review. If there's, if this would be something we'd want to look into, but also we can definitely walk through the project list too, but wanted to just see if there's any feedback on the priority matrix first and foremost, then we can go back to the projects. The ask would be to follow up, yes. And
So that's not.
yep, it would be to follow up. But if there is general impact, that is this a process? Is it worth looking into further and bringing it back, or is it something that, maybe not the best idea?
The
That is-
matrix.
yeah, the
Again,
matrix.
all right, so
And
we're
then-
just making sure we're not diving into the list specifically. of
We
those-
could, for 2025, we can do that as well.
Yes, but right now, the key thing is making sure that the matrix works for everyone, or yeah. So that we
Yeah.
can then move forward
Yep.
in using it.
Yep.
Okay, just being conscious of our time because we do have 15 more minutes of the work session. So we do, Councilmember Marshall, did you have anything else? All right, then I do want to go and I'll come back to you, Councilmember Dodwell, but I see Councilmember Edens and then it was Councilmember Brost and Councilmember Farmer. So Councilmember Edens, you're up next.
Yes, I think this is a really good and comprehensive list we've got, and it's something that we asked for in Public Works because we felt like projects that were on the list maybe didn't represent things that we previously said were a priority. My only question is working in maybe the criteria somewhere, and I see other areas where it could go, but it would actually cause the ranking to be lower. It's just whether or not the city is solely responsible for that item. What I mean by that, for example, is we have different watershed projects, but some of them are retrofitting basins that are not on city-owned land. But we also have other projects like our 13-mile, or 13-acre triple meander, which is entirely city-owned, meaning we are the sole responsible party, and there could be different legal ramifications if we don't maintain that area versus something another party owns. And so I'm thinking that might just be a criteria we would want to score somewhere. It's implied for a lot of projects, but not projects where there's a public partnership, where you have support. Well, if you have support, it would be scored higher, because a thought would be, well, you're spreading the cost and the responsibility, so it's better for the city. And I get that, but we also have these other projects where it's actually more important that we do it ourselves because we're the only people that are responsible for doing it. So that would be my feedback, is figuring out where to put that, because I do think that it's part of keeping your own house in order, is making sure the house gets repairs, so to speak. Does that make sense? I'm wordy and I don't.
So is it? Yeah, so you're saying that the presence of pretty much who's responsible, answering the question who's responsible, and if it's if we're responsible solely, then that would be a certain score, and then if it's that'd be the only question I'd have on that is, do we sometimes there is a situation where if we're the sole sponsor of the project, we should be, then that might score higher in some instances, whereas we might want partners in other projects.
Right, and
So
I don't know where it fits because of that. I mean, you could make the case that if it's a MoDOT thing, that yeah, we can cost share, but it's really MoDOT's job first. But I don't have a good answer about where it fits. I just know that we should probably ask the question somewhere. Yeah, but I see the problem with what I'm suggesting, but I also see the problem if we don't take it into account, because what I'm worried about is we're gonna really score high everything where somebody else comes to the table. And just because somebody else comes to the table doesn't mean it's the thing that we need to do first.
Taking that feedback. Noted. So moving on, Councilmember Brost, you are next.
Yeah, I guess I don't have a comment on a particular project, but in this format, I don't necessarily have a problem with the format. I guess what I'm really struggling with here is that it looks like we're sort of starting over. And we've done a lot of work in the past on priorities and aligning, say the top was internet and we had erosion and public safety and downward. So I think maybe in a different manner, we've spent a lot of time already on this. And what I would suggest is, I do like the idea of every year we hammer on this hard, but what I would suggest is, based on all the priorities and the discussions over the past probably 2 years, is why don't the staff prepare this based on all the decisions the council's already made and then bring it back for an edit, a revision, or a confirmation. At the admin meeting, the one thing, whether it's right or wrong, that's for the council to decide. But it seems like the priorities that were embedded in the budgeted items have drifted from the priorities that we collectively set in those strategy sessions. So, and I think due respect to the council, but as items develop, in the operation of the city, we may not be as familiar with some of those as you will be or the other departments. So that would probably expedite it, that if, the bridge on Centaur Road that wasn't a new bridge, it was just refaced. Now we have issues. Well, we may not all know that. So obviously that has to get pushed up, but I think the best thing for us to do is if this template is one that we all want, maybe we agree on that. And then we task back and say, Mr. Lee, go finish it. And then we hammer that out and I'll get everybody upset and bring up pickleball courts. But when we went through the strategy session, pickleball courts weren't even on the list. And now it's gone from 100,000 to 500,000, and it's in 25, and it's 2 times the budget for erosion. So is that really what we want? And if the answer is yes, then that's what we do. But somehow I think there's been some drifting there. But I think this is very well thought out, but it is sort of starting over. If Teresa was here, she'd be upset, but that's my comment. I'm not picking on any one item. We happen to talk about the pickleball at the session, at the admin. So, but I don't mind making that motion, but I don't necessarily want to cut off any discussion. So I won't make that motion right now.
And then
Let me just get clarity. Are you making a motion at this time, or is that?
I'm happy to, but if we make a motion, does that limit other people's discussion on the topic?
Yeah, maybe if you don't mind, just holding on. that.
Yeah,
And I
I'll wait.
Respectfully ask if folks don't mind to hold off on making a motion there, just so that we can keep the discussion open there. I do have Councilmember Farmer that is up next on the list, is Chair of Admin Public Works. So he may be able to also
Yeah,
add to it. And then
so-
Councilmember McCutcheon.
I think kind of along the lines of what Councilmember Rose was saying, I think the intention that we had was to head off a budgetary crunch that we've got coming, not today, but in the very near future. And so I think reading through this matrix, I think it does look very well thought out. I think most of these things are probably going to have to be answered by the city staff, because a lot of these things I know I don't know anything about. And what we really talked about was taking those elements that we have that we're sort of legally obligated to, things that we have matching funds for, things that we have like real firm dates in place, putting those on a list, and then taking everything else that is on this plan off the list and having conversations about those specific items as to whether or not they should come back. And as Councilmember Rose mentioned, are the pickleball courts more important than whatever else? We can have that conversation, but it's more trying to realign and remanage a budget that's about to balloon way outside of what we can afford in every realm of possibility. So it's giving us the opportunity to get this under control before it becomes a real problem. And the matrix is trying, I think, is designed, our discussion was to design it so that everybody has different priorities. They think of things in a different way. And so if we can have a mathematical score that is whatever it is, and then we can speak to something that is more important to us or our ward or whatever it is, great. But it gives everybody a jumping off point instead of being kind of conflated in what we might be thinking. If that makes sense.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Farmer there. And I'm glad you made that point, that this is really looking at the future and making sure that from a financial perspective, but I think too, we cannot lose sight it's not only just about the financial side, it's the ability to execute on the projects with limited resources that we have. When I talk about the people side of it, right? Even if we have the money, it's just how much can we handle at one particular time, right? Before the, it's kind of like spinning the plates, right? How many before they could start to fall. So, Councilmember McCutcheon, I know you have your hand up. I'm watching the clock here because I do want to give you all a chance for a quick break before we get into the main session. Is it a quick, oh, go ahead.
Okay, so, like Councilman, Mr. Bro said, I brought strategic plan that we put together. And I kind of looked at that and looked at the budget. Okay, I'll admit it. I am like totally confused by the matrix. I have no concept of how that's supposed to go. But I did look at the strategic plan and look and see what was in the budget. And hard courts were listed in the strategic plan. I don't know what priority it was, but it was in here. So, I mean, we, like he said, we've already, we spent the time making a strategic plan. So now what do we do with that? If we do the matrix, does it get lobbed into the matrix somehow? I'm just totally confused. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so and I think Mr. Farmer, Mr. Bros kind of spoke to it, and we could have it so, myself, the Department of, our Director of Planning, our Director of Public Works, all go through this and almost have a major question that could be answered to be the highest ranked priority of, is it included in the strategic plan, and have that be the highest ranked question. And then I think that
the goal for the strategic plan was to be all inclusive and then rate it. So, like we could have this matrix here, we might have 1,000 items in them, but 980 aren't going to count because they're going to have such a low score. So I think it's great that everything gets included. So it has an opportunity. I think the best 3 people to score it are in here, and then they score it. And if pickleball courts is number 1 for the city, I'm probably not going to agree. But I think it's important that those 3 score it, and it's all inclusive. Because what we don't want to do is a week after it's done, say we want to put sidewalks in my subdivision. We don't want to go there. We'd make that decision annually. So
I think it would be appropriate, and it seems like there might be support there if you do make that motion to let the staff, who are the people closest to the work, to go ahead and populate that and bring this before this body here. We're ultimately the decision-making body, but at least having that information there in front of us would probably be most efficient and utilize their expertise for it. Councilmember Dodwell?
I just wanted to make one real quick point here. This particular matrix was used to put together our strategic plan. This is very similar to what was put together when we were developing our strategic plan. Is that correct?
in this case, it's somewhat similar. I can't speak to the exact.
It may not
exact
have the
processing.
exact same
Yeah,
computations, but
it's a similar thought process of ranking different projects, and to maybe clean up the motion a little bit. I think Mr. Farmer, Councilmember Farmer spoke pretty well to this. Is taking maybe the staff, our Director of Public Works, our Director of Planning and Parks, and myself. Can take the 5-year capital improvement program, take all the projects that are included in there, and really answer the question, was this included on the strategic plan? Say yes or no, have that clearly stated, and then run it through this matrix, just to be able to say, which ones are actually included on the in the 5-year strategic plan, which ones are not, and then also to have a score next to them too. So in this case, when we're coming about this at the following year, we have a list of projects. The goal is to identify maybe some projects that were not included in the 5-year strategic plan that may or may not be the highest priority of the council, but somehow it got onto the list. Identify those and then eliminate them, because at the end of the day, not this year and we will be fine, but if the next 2 years we have 8 million and then 11 million being spent, and it's the real main piece here is that we'd either need to spread this out a little bit to allow for additional revenues to come in and under our capital improvement sales tax fund to help fund some of these projects, or potentially pushing some of these projects off to make room for the projects that are bigger priorities for the city council.
Yeah, so Joe, I'll make the motion. That the staff goes through that process and it would include items that are currently in the budget. It's items identified in our strategic plan that's been completed and any other items that they feel should be included. We want it to be an all-inclusive list. So that's my motion.
Thank you. And that's seconded by Councilmember Dodwell. So we do have the motion on the floor. I know we did quite a bit of discussion. There anything else at all before we take a vote? Councilmember
I guess the
Marshall.
question would be then, where are you putting the offset for the grants? So these are the gross amounts. And I think that would help us understand what the grants are that would offset that to the net amount that truly will hit our capital budget.
1 second. Pull that up. So in this case, when it comes to the grants, and that is you go to plan project expenditures. I mean, even in 2025 alone, and we could provide that number for 2026 through 29 as well. And that is actually there. 1 second. Getting out. Okay, so if you go to page 81, that actually shows when you look at the total expenditures, that is your total number. You put that against the total revenue at the
What
Yes.
page were you on?
Page 81.
Here, hang on, I'll get it for you.
So, thank you, Travis.
Yeah.
So the two pages to look at here, a little bit closer attention, would be page 81 and page 76. So page 76 is just for the fiscal year of 2025, but total, that gross number that you were talking about, Mr. Marshall, was that 10,212,000. That being said, what's actually hitting the capital improvement sales tax fund is the $5,637,150. So what makes up that is grant funding at $2,361,000, and then interfund transfers, which include one transfer of the $1,010,724 that goes towards that Spectrum Phase 2. Another component is the $476 from the ARPA fund that is interest income off the ARPA funds that would be transferred to the capital improvement sales tax fund for coverage of Phase 2. So that equals that grand total of $1,486,724. And then the other component would be the transfers out from the West and East TGA, which is approximately $728,000 going towards the 109 BA South Roundabout project, the construction of it, and then the Main Street extension obtaining right of way. Both of those are eligible expenses from TGA. So that was something that was discussed both for the 2024 and 25, but you usually want to have that fund transfer done when the expenditures listed. So in that case, really these two transfers were almost approved in 2024 for the 2024 fiscal year, but now it's for 25. And then grant revenue equals that 2,361,000. The issue pulls up when you have total revenues at about $5,636,000. But we're sitting at approximately $5,637,000 for the capital. That's going against the capital, and that's what leads you to net a decrease in the actual the ending fund balance for capital improvement. We're going from $8,399,000 to approximately $6 million just with the expenditures for next year, and that includes all the revenue.
I totally understand that. I guess I think it's hard as you're asking a lot of us to go through this. We're not really sure when it says grant, local, or whatever, what that true cost is, because we see it at the top line. But if we're only bringing in $4 million a year, we need to have some really good logic behind how we're going to spend 10 million. And if 4 or 5 million of that's grants, then we're still talking money. I just think some way that makes it a little bit easier to tie the two together. That's all.
Right, Councilmember McCutcheon.
Yeah, I don't understand how this accounts for the ebb and flow. Because we'll think we're doing a project and then there's a shift there because we don't spend all the money at one time, but you have all the money listed at one time. So actually to me, you're listing more than you're actually going to spend for that year. So you need to like account for the ebb and flow. It's not all going to happen that one particular year necessarily, because you got to do the plan, you got to do design, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not all going to happen in that one year.
So typically, if we have a project that encompasses multiple years, that would be counted as an encumbrance. So in that case, you typically post the entirety of the amount you are looking to spend in a given year, and then you'll carry that balance forward and reduce that from the total amount that you have to budget in the following year. So say you have a situation where you're spending $1 million in the 2025, we enter into a contract, but you're only spending half of that in that one year. You're going to take 500,000, you're going to post it all in the 2025 fiscal year, but in 2026, you're going to take, let's say you've made 500,000 worth of payments, that's your expenditure. And then in 2026, you're going to post that and actually take that from the total amount that you have to actually budget from. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying, but as far as an inflow in my mind, no, it doesn't, because you're putting the total cost of the project in one year, but we're not going to actually spend that amount of money in one year.
Are you referring to those, like, for example, there are some projects here where they break out the phases and the expenses
But we
across
don't
multiple
on all,
years?
but it's not on all of them. Because I mean, say a project costs $25,000, but this year it's only going to cost us 10, but you've got 25 listed there. So it doesn't actually cost us 25 this year. It only cost us 10. Well, I'm not talking about the matrix where I can't see where it's going to fit into the matrix. I saw it broken out on the budget, but I don't see it, how it's going to fit into the matrix.
Oh, well, the matrix right now is technically the matrix right now is really in its infancy. The goal was to propose this as kind of a way to, filter all the projects. So in this case, if there's specific, the question tonight from the department was if there's any specific feedback on, hey, maybe there's a criteria that's clearly missing, or if there's a way we want to go about this. Originally, we thought that maybe it would be something we use interconnectively, but now we're looking for the motion to use it as a team, which that would cover the total cost. But I do not, if we could add in, is it a project that we could do in one fiscal year as well? That could be a criteria. So if working it into the actual matrix, that could be a component.
I think that would be easy. Anyway, for me, that would be easier to follow because I would know exactly how much money we're spending that year, not on the total project.
All right, thank you for that. Looks like then with that motion on the floor, I don't see any other hands up, so we'll try a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, anyone opposed or abstain? All right, that motion passes, so that then concludes, you have something else?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The only other item was just a motion to proceed with preparation of these budget documents for the public hearing on November 18th.
Okay,
So
all
it'd be coming back with the review, but also the items presented tonight.
right, Councilmember Ottenberg, is that a motion?
Yes, I will make that motion and proceed.
Hey, Councilmember Galani. Okay, that is a second. City Clerk Eldridge, you got that? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Anyone oppose or abstain? All right, the motion passes. So then at this point, anything under miscellaneous under the work session? Okay, let me get a motion for adjournment of the work session made by Councilmember Farmer, seconded by Councilmember Mabry. All those in favor, please say aye. Anyone oppose or abstain? All right, the work session is adjourned. It is 6:39. We are running a little bit behind, so I know that you may want to take a quick break. So why don't we resume at target 6:45? So that'll be about 6 minutes. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for your patience. We'll begin now our regular council meeting for Monday, October 28th. So at this time, I'd like to ask our city clerk to start with the roll call.
Mayor Garitano,
Present.
Councilmember Brost, Councilmember Edens,
Here.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Here.
Councilmember Marshall,
Present.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Here.
Councilmember Hopper,
Here.
Councilmember Galani, Councilmember Preston,
Here.
Councilmember Mabry, Councilmember Nyan,
Here.
Councilmember Farmer,
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Here,
Councilmember Rambo,
Here.
Councilmember Crayons,
Here.
Councilmember Albers.
Here.
All right, thank you. May I ask if you're able to stand up so that we could have the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Since we do not have a consent agenda for tonight, I'll look for a motion for approval of the minutes made by Councilmember Farmer. Is there a second for approval of the October 14th, 2024 minutes? Seconded by Councilmember Nyan. Any questions or comments regarding the approval of the minutes? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone oppose or abstain?
Abstain.
We have one abstention, Councilmember Hopper. The minutes are approved. We'll move into the public participation portion of tonight's meeting. So I'll ask the city clerk if we have anyone that wishes to speak. We have no one that has requested to speak here in the room. This is an opportunity, if anyone's online, if you do wish to speak, we do ask that you use the raise hand feature so that we can call on you. So we'll give that just a second here. All right, seeing none, then we'll continue to move forward with the agenda. So under mayor's announcements and appointments, I'll ask if you just give me a moment. I'd like to step down so we could present a proclamation. Yes, we can do that. So thank you, everyone. We have a special proclamation for tonight. So I'd like to ask Lulu Vogelin to come up front here. And in case you do not know Lulu, she is part of equine assisted therapy, which has been a part of Wildwood for some time, and they do incredible work there in the community. And so we want to recognize your 20th anniversary for being a part of Wildwood and really the impact that you have for all the folks here in community and throughout the region. So we have this special proclamation here. I'm gonna read it here if you will allow me to. So whereas equine assisted therapy was founded in Wildwood in 2004 by Ginny Hartgate, and whereas equine assisted therapy provides therapeutic horseback riding activities for individuals with mental, physical, and psychological challenges to enhance the quality and productivity of their lives. And whereas since 2004, the organization has added an additional location at Longview Farm Park in Town and Country. And whereas 16 certified instructors and over 150 volunteers serve more than 160 riders each week. And whereas equine assisted therapy Inc. is very important not only to the Wildwood community, but the greater St. Louis area, and is celebrating its 20th anniversary. Now, therefore, I, Joseph Garitano, Mayor of the City of Wildwood, on behalf of the City of Wildwood, do on this 28th day of October, hereby recognize equine assisted therapy for its 20th anniversary, as well as their many contributions to the City of Wildwood and region. So congratulations. going to put you on the spot here. Would you like to say anything to the council?
Well, just thank you to the city and to the council for your support for what we do at Equine Assisted Therapy. We are honored to be a part of this community and hoped for continued growth for all of us.
Thank you again and congratulations. All right, thank you. So we'll move on to legislation. We have several bills under unfinished business. So I'll first ask if there is any bill that anyone would like to have read separately. Otherwise, for the sake of efficiency, we can read the bills en masse. So is there anyone that has anything? Okay. So therefore, I'd like to present before the council bills 2928, 2929, 2932, 2933, 2934, and 2937 for second reading. Is there a motion for the second reading of the bills? Made by Councilmember Ottenberg. Is there a second? Made by Councilmember Nyan. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone oppose? Anyone abstain? All right, Ms. Eldridge, please read the bill numbers. Please read the bills.
Bill number 2928, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, amending chapter 205 of the Code of Ordinances of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, providing regulations for animals at large, second reading. Bill number 2929, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor. No, there's no new business. Bill number 2929, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to negotiate and execute an agreement with White Buffalo Incorporated for reduction of the deer population within the city of Wildwood, second reading. Bill number 2932, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to negotiate and execute an agreement with Leak Stoppers Roofing LLC for the installation of guttering at the Wildwood Municipal Building, second reading. Bill number 2933, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, amending chapter 500 of the Code of Ordinances of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, and enacting in lieu thereof a new article 11 to chapter 500, providing for a reoccupancy program for all rental residential units, second reading. Bill number 2934, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing an amendment to an existing agreement with St. Louis County, Missouri, for code enforcement services for building/swimming pool and spa, residential, existing building, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, explosives, and property maintenance codes, second reading. Bill number 2937, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the purchase of one 2024 Chevrolet Colorado 4WD Crew Cab pickup truck from Don Brown Chevrolet Incorporated through the State of Missouri Cooperative Procurement Program, second reading.
Thank you. I'll ask if City Administrator Lee or Directors Brown and Vunich have anything that they wish to add in addition to the information that's already been provided.
Thank you, Mayor. I can speak to Bill 2929. And I can let Mr. Vunich speak to Bill 2033 and 2934. And then I could speak to Rick, I could speak to 2937 as well. So real quick, 2929 is the agreement approving White Buffalo's second year of operations as shown earlier in the work session. This money is budgeted in 2025. They would begin baiting right after the new year, and then they would look to operate for approximately 34 days within the 2025 fiscal year. Right now, we're actually cranking up. We've already sent 2 mailers out, and we actually saw a pretty stark increase in the number of people filling out the form online. So looking good in that regard, and we'll have a virtual Q&A session coming up here too. We'll be releasing info on that shortly. So this is really more so just encompassing the agreement for the second year. And then Bill 2932 is the agreement with Leak Stoppers Roofing. This is to add guttering to the 3 dormers, one located on the front north side of the building, right above the Parks Department over on the 2nd floor on the east side of our building currently. And then also on the south side, there is a dormer right above the entrance and a dormer right above the kitchen on the west side of the building. And in this case, we'd be adding guttering to avoid having water buildup in there and should actually solve a couple of the leaks. And then last but not least, bill number 2937 would be the approval and final approval of the purchase. This is budgeted in 2024, and it's adding a mid-sized truck to our fleet in order to well, we have a current truck that needs to be replaced, and in this case, this was something that we have budgeted for, and we're happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Any questions for City Administrator Lee?
You calling on me? Yeah. Oh, okay. Bill 2929. I get a lot of residents tell me that this is a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. And I just wonder, what are we getting for our money? What's the bang for the buck? Have we seen a decrease in car accidents? Is this paying something? We're getting a return on our investment?
Thank you, Councilmember Cran. So in this case, we should start seeing a slight decrease, and we can study this. The issue with the number of car accidents is that we receive an annual report from the county police department. Right now, we have the 2023 data, but we don't have the 2024 data. So in that case, after the first of the year, when we do get that report, that is going to be the first year that there should be any tangible benefits from the 300 deer that were removed earlier this year. So we're hoping to see a decrease in the number of deer vehicular collisions that have occurred in the close to the NE1 area. So the other component, though, is we did see a pretty sizable decrease in the number of deer that were seen via our population survey that was conducted in April of this year. So before the spring bloom, we were able to get the NE1, which was the area that operations were conducted in 2024, and also the NE2 area. The NE2 area is the area that we're looking at in 2025, but NE1, we had removed 300 deer successfully. And in this case, they had saw that number go from approximately 92 deer per square mile in 2020 to recording it in 2024 at after the operations took place to approximately 72 deer per square mile. So that 300 would correlate to approximately 300 deer being removed. But another component that shows that we can make even a larger dent in this issue is that when they accounted for specific areas of the large farmland on the northern side of the NE1, along with McBride Point Drive, and then Panorama in that area right there in NE1, when they accounted for the transects, the paths that the individuals that were monitoring the deer movements, if they took into account certain those 3 specific areas, they actually saw that reduction go from about 92 deer per square mile to about 54. So that's why we're trying to revisit that area this year, because that gets us a heck of a lot closer to our 40 deer per square mile goal. But obviously the department is at the wills of the council. If this is something that we don't want to pursue, then now would be the time to have that discussion.
So we'll try it one more year and see where we are then, if we get to our goal, 40 deer per square mile.
Yeah. So in that case, I do not believe that we will be at, especially across the 6 map areas that have been identified, I do not believe we'll be at 40 deer per square mile, just because we are currently looking at across the 6 different map areas. We're at 72 on average. That's based off 2020 numbers. We're looking to conduct the remaining maps in after November, probably early December of this year. But this is a problem that's probably going to take years to solve.
Who comes up with a 40 square mile?
The 40 deer per square mile. That was
40 deer.
something that was a goal that was established by the council earlier in this process.
It's established by the council?
It was decided about, if you actually want to go off the Missouri Department of Conservation's recommendation, they would actually recommend that a safe and sustainable number would be less than 20 deer per square mile. So this would be somewhat of a meeting in the middle because of Wildwood's rural character. But I do know that there are over 280 deer vehicle collisions that are being reported each year. The hope is we see a decrease in the number of deer vehicle collisions, but I know Dr. Rambo could probably speak to this a lot better than I could, but also we could see that there has been and this is hard to measure. The best thing to measure to actually show quantitative results is the decrease in the deer population itself and how that correlates to the deer population. But the other component is how many tick-borne, there's been a lot of reports from residents that they've gotten some ticks, they've gotten, and deer are a transmitter. They carry the ticks along them. And then also we've gotten quite a few complaints from multiple residents and that the deer are eating their gardens, they're eating all their vegetation. And something that's strange about our wildlife is that we've actually noted that our deer eat things that like honeysuckle. We've noted that that stuff that you just don't see them eat in other communities where the density is not as large. So I do see that Dr. Rambo had his hand up.
Hey, Dr. Rambo, would you like to speak?
Yes, I would. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, just very briefly, because I'm not there and I'm not feeling well, but I just wanted to address the question of efficacy and rationale directly. We have our plan that the current plan as incepted is documented on our website. Folks can go pull it down and look at it, and it gives all the rationales and the explanation of the 40 deer per square mile parameter and many of the other things that might come up as questions. And I think people have gotten more comfortable with it as they've looked at it. And we had that we had an open house about deer management a month ago. I happened to attend. It was very well attended. People were very supportive of the program, but they asked lots of questions. And went away much better informed. And so we may want to do another one of those or even more to get people on board. But our plan is very well documented, and the case kind of makes itself when you go through it. So that's all I wanted to mention. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, is that all? Okay, great. Anyone else have anything else that they wish? Otherwise, I'll ask Director Vunich, do you wish to add anything to the information that's been provided?
Yes. Yes, Mr. Mayor. At the last meeting, there was a question that was raised by Councilmember Marshall regarding the residential reoccupancy inspections of rental properties, specifically relating to groundwater wells, potable wells, and septic systems. And through some limited research that the department was able to conduct since that last meeting, both of those are specialty inspections and not necessarily ones that a general inspector through the reoccupancy program, if done by St. Louis County, would be capable of. The recommendation that Ms. Ripito provided, who has done these types of inspections in Maryland Heights and Town and Country, as well as Manchester, Missouri, is that it's a checkoff box on the application. So we would require the homeowner to provide an inspection report as part of the reoccupancy program. That's an additional cost onto the homeowner. But again, if it's necessary per the city council's direction, it's something that can be added. Secondly, as you know, I was not in town last week, and from the perspective of the department, I've not received the comments that I was expecting from the city attorney regarding Bill 2933. I know that we had discussed over the ensuing time period between our last meeting and tonight to have that conversation, and that conversation hasn't been concluded. So from the department's perspective, and I apologize to the mayor and to the city administrator, I think Bill 2933 needs to be postponed. It will not impact the implementation. Again, as part of the bill, we've talked about approving the bill this year and implementing it at the start of 2025. That way we have time to notify the residential community that represents rental properties, so to speak, whether it's the real estate board, the different apartment complexes in the city of Wildwood, and et cetera. So it won't delay the implementation, but it'll give us a little bit more time to refine. And certainly, if tonight there is direction on septic systems and wells, that can be incorporated into the final bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Vunich. So I will open up for questions, but I do have one question per your request to postpone 2933. This would be for the city attorney. Could you advise what the procedure would be? We did do a motion for the second reading of the bills en masse. That included 2933, but as you heard, there is a request on that. So could you advise how we would handle that?
Yes, before the votes on the bills that were read en masse, if someone would make a motion to postpone that bill into the next regular meeting, second and a vote on that motion to postpone.
Okay, so then right now, someone could make that motion to postpone specifically that bill. And then after that motion has been voted on, ultimately after discussion, then we can continue with the roll for final passage, and that would exclude the bill.
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have a couple of hands up over here. So again, I'll just take it in the order that I see them. So Councilmember Ottenberg.
I'll make the motion to postpone the bill that Director Vunich mentioned until the December meeting?
November meeting.
November meeting, okay, to the November meeting.
Okay, so that is a motion for the postponement of Bill 2933 for the November meeting, and that's Councilmember Hopper. Is that a second? It looks like it is. So now we do have that motion on the floor specific to the postponement of 2933. Any discussion on that motion? All right, Councilmember Marshall.
So should we not? I mean, we're putting this inspection out there, and since half the city doesn't have sewer, and we have half the city that has wells, I would think it'd be in our best interest to add to this bill that the cost of the water and the sewer inspection for rental properties be included as the box, so that the homeowners that are going to lease at least know they have a responsibility. So somebody who rents a place doesn't realize the septic systems don't work, or the well's dry, or whatever that is. So is that appropriate to make an amendment to the motion, or when it comes back, could that be added to it?
Yeah, so I mean, you certainly could amend it, or if you want to convey that to the department now. I mean, it looks like it's going to come back, obviously, November. So I think your input is duly noted. But if you want it on the record, you can certainly.
My motion is just to have the council support it or not. I mean, I personally think that we should do it to do it right. But if the council says no, the president, that's fine.
So, I mean, we do have it under an amendment, right? Well, right now the motion is for postponement. City attorney, could you advise what's the appropriate here, if this falls under the postponement, or if it should be done separately?
Here's what I would suggest. We've got a motion to postpone pending, and it has a priority motion, so it takes priority over any motion to amend. So it has to be acted upon. However, understanding what Councilmember Marshall's question is, and without objection, the Director of Planning and I can come up with some language to present at the next meeting as kind of an alternative or amended bill, such that if there is desire to go along that way, the language will be prepared and ready to go.
Sounds like, yes, we can get that feedback from council, and that language is presented. Makes sense to do it that way. So again, motion to postpone on the floor. Councilmember Galani. Yes, we do have that motion right now takes precedence. So if there isn't anything specific to the postponement, I will check to see. Councilmember Broster. Okay, so with that, if the motion passes, 2933 will not be part of the second reading tonight. It will come back in November, and then they will also present language that includes what Councilmember Marshall brought up, which can then be acted on the council or not. So all those in favor of the motion to postpone, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? All right, the motion to postpone passes. So we're back to the remainder of the bills. Is there anything else that anyone has a question or comment for Director Vunich related to the remainder of the bills? Okay, well, seeing none, then Ms. Eldridge, please call the roll for final passage.
Councilmember Bros,
Yes.
Councilmember Edens,
Yes.
Councilmember Oddberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall.
Yes.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Yes.
Councilmember Hopper,
Yes.
Councilmember Galani.
Yeah.
Councilmember Preston,
Yes.
Councilmember Mabry,
Yes.
Councilmember Nian,
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer,
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo,
Abstain. Nobody wants to see me tonight.
Councilmember Franz,
Does he need to put his camera on since it's a roll call?
Mr. Mayor, I'm not going to
Okay.
turn my camera on. I'm not a pretty sight, so I abstained. But if it's not appropriate, I just won't. Just tell me to shut up.
Mayor, the abstention is fine.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Kranz,
Yes.
Councilmember Albers.
Great, then that passes. Thank you for that. So we will now proceed to miscellaneous. Does anyone have anything under miscellaneous? Councilmember Marshall.
Not to be real nitpicky here, but when we do put in this rental inspection, and I looked in the budget, I didn't see where we were showing any revenue coming. I know it's only $25, but we know there should be lots of those, nor did it appear that we added any people to handle this. So I'm just curious, is it kind of neutral, or do we have a projection of how many inspections you think we would do next year? Because that would be a miscellaneous fee that I didn't see anything in the budget for us.
Well, as you know, through the discussions we've held over the course of now approximately 18 months, we will be engaging St. Louis County to do these inspections as they do many of the others relative to new building remodels, et cetera. And so from the perspective of the city, there will be no charge to the city. The permit fee that St. Louis County will charge an individual property owner will cover their cost as well. The $25 that the city will collect is for our processing of the final permit and the reoccupancy certificate itself. Will we need additional staffing? I don't know, but certainly when the city council agreed to fund MyGov, our online portal for permitting processes, that certainly has been a very successful tool for us. And it has, in many regards, I think, saved us from having those discussions about expanding staff. Next year, at this time, when we do budgets, we'll have a better idea if we've been successful in keeping pace. And in terms of what we anticipate in terms of revenues, certainly, as you know, we talked about the city having a large number of rental properties. So from the perspective of the city, at least the department for the city, I think entertaining a guess at this time would just be that, a guess. But always look back at, regardless of what revenues we may gain or what fees we may charge, it's a life safety issue, and ensuring that first and foremost, tenant of these rentals is in a safe place. And then secondly, preserving property values, making sure that absentee owners don't let the properties degrade to the point where it impacts others in the vicinity. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Councilmember Mabry.
Can your comments at the next meeting include what constitutes this septic inspection? Just from a very sour personal experience with having to undergo one of these a couple of years ago with a building permit at my place, which was $650 for a scope of work with my home that required that. Can you define what constitutes this septic inspection with every turnover of a renter, where the monthly rent might be $600 or not, and whether or not you're mentioning Ms. Ripito has performed these inspections. Is this something the city can execute? Or is it something St. Louis County comes out and does to warranty the quality of the septic field, which is what the septic letter was required and cost me that much money? I see that as a quite an encumbrance to put on a landlord for every time that their place turns over. That's just the issue I have. If there's any other means to make certain that if there's been nothing done to the structure to modify it to the extent requiring a building permit, that this septic inspection wouldn't require warranting the entire field, just whatever other things can be seen visibly.
When I mentioned Miss Ripito's role, she did property inspections when she started her career at Maryland Heights. So she's very well versed in the process and how inspections are done, responses from property owners, tenants, et cetera. So I've depended on her a great deal, as well as the Planning and Parks Committee, to guide us through this kind of field of reoccupancy inspections. Saying that, we will contact some of the firms that we know that do septic inspections on a private basis. Right now, when someone sells a home in the non-urban or rural areas of Wildwood, they'll do private building inspections. And part of that, typically, if you're on a septic system, is a septic inspection. So we'll get you some idea of cost and what would be the best approach in terms of what we're looking for. I would say that if someone had done a septic inspection in a recent time frame, that would probably suffice. But again, we'll get you a little bit more information on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, seeing no other hands up for miscellaneous, I did just want to mention a couple of things. Thank you to all the board members and commission members that were able to participate at the appreciation dinner, and of course, anyone that wasn't able to make it. We just want to make sure that we're recognizing the service that these folks from our community provide. So that was a nicely well-attended evening there. And I do want to recognize the Department of Parks because the Shivering Shadows 7K that took place last Friday was a beautiful evening. 180 plus runners, which is a new record for our city, number of participants there. So great job by all. I heard it was a fun evening there. And then, as you know, City Clerk has been providing us updates. The city has provided the St. Louis County Board of Elections the use of this room for the no excuse absentee voting that started last week. And it appears that the community has been turning out. This is our second time or election that the city is participating in. And the first time, I believe it was kind of like, we were kind of ranked second from the bottom of the list, about 14 satellite locations. And right now, we've been consistently about 6 out of 15. So a lot of folks that are coming here from within Wildwood, Eureka, Chesterfield, for this location, and they're doing a great job getting that taken care of. The last thing I just want to remind everyone, we do have our coffee with the mayor next week on Thursday. And so welcome anyone to join us. We're also going to do something special. As you know, we have our Hometown Heroes banners that are up along Manchester Road, and many folks are participating. But we're also going to do a salute to our veterans on Thursday, November 7th at 8:30. So as you know, Veterans Day is a holiday. So the City Hall is closed and the staff get the holiday. So we're going to do that on Thursday, November 7th. Anyone is available and wishes to attend, we'd love to have you there. We've got Metro West and several other folks that are going to be there. So we're looking forward to that. If you could join us. First time we're doing such a type of event to recognize veterans there. It'll be right here at City Hall. Yep. So,
It's on that Thursday before Veterans Day. So it's on.
Great. So that's all I've got. Well, thank you, everyone. So I'll look for a motion for adjournment made by Councilmember Kranz. There's second by Councilmember Ottenberg. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? All right, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.